Hi, welcome to Grade 5, Module 5, Lesson 12. Our learning target for today is I can measure to find the area of rectangles with fractional side lengths. Remember, the formula for area is length times width. Today you will need a ruler and your Lesson 12 problem set. So let's get started with number 1. Number 1 says, measure each rectangle to the nearest 1/4 inch with your ruler and then label the dimensions. Use the area model to find each area. So the first thing I need to do is take my ruler and I'm going to measure the length. So if I go across, it's exactly on the 2. So my length I'm going to label is 2 inches. Okay, then I take my ruler again. I'm going to measure the width, and if I measure the width, it falls exactly on the 2.5 inches. And remember, 2/4 is the same thing as a half, so I could label it 2.5 inches. So now that I have my rectangle labeled, I have to decompose this side into ones and fractional parts so that I can make my area model. So I'm going to break apart the 2.5 into the 2 at the top and the half at the bottom. So I have 2.5, 2 inches at the top, ½ inch at the bottom. So now I'm ready to find my areas for each part. I'm going to go ahead and find the area for the top part. The top part is found by multiplying 2 times 2. So the area for this part is 2 times 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So my area for the top part is 4 inches squared. Don't forget to label your units. And then my area for the bottom part would be 2 times a half. So 2 times 1/2. And remember, since this is a whole number, I can change it into a fraction by putting it over a 1 because it's still equal to 2. So now I have numerator times numerator. 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And 2 over 2 is the same thing as 1 whole. So the bottom part is 1 inch squared. And now to find the total area, my total area would be to add my 4 inches squared plus my 1 inch squared. 4 plus 1 is 5 inches squared. So my area is 5 inches squared for this rectangle. Okay, that's how you find area using the area model. Okay, let's go on to our question number 2. In question number 2, it says find the area of the rectangle with the following dimension. Explain your thinking using an area model. So this time we're going to do the exact same thing, but instead of measuring the sides, they already gave us the dimensions. So we're going to make an area model. So let me make my box first. So the first part is 1.5 yards. And just like we did in the first problem, we have to decompose or break it apart. So we have ones separated from our fractions. So here I'm going to have 1, and I'm going to break it apart so I have a half over here. So I have a half of a yard and 1 yard. So I'm going to divide my area model going down. So I have my 2 parts. And I'm going to do the same thing. My width is also 1.5 yards, so I have to break that apart. Here's my 1 yard and my half of a yard. So now I'm going to break up my area model so I have a top and a bottom. So now what's left for me to do is find the of my 4 parts. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply my length times my width, so that would be 1 times 1, and 1 times 1 is 1 yard squared. Okay, so that first box is done. We'll go over to the second one. It's 1/2 times 1. Now remember, I have a whole number. I'm going to put it over a 1, so I turned it into a fraction. It's still equal to 1. I'm allowed to do that. 1 times 1, 1. 2 times 1 is 2. So I have 1/2 of a yard squared. Then down at the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do 1 yard times a half. So 1 times a half. I have 1 whole. I'm going to put it over a 1, so I have fraction times fraction. 1 times 1, numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. 1 times 2 is 2. So I have 1/2 yard squared. And the last part, I have 1/2 times 1/2. So 1/2 times 1/2. 1 times 1, numerator times numerator is 1. Denominator times denominator, 2 times 2 is 4. 1/4 of a yard squared. Now, in order to find my total area, I need to add all 4 parts, the 1, the 1/2, the 1/2, and the 1/4. So I'm going to put it over here. In order to find my area, I have to add 1 plus a half plus a half plus a quarter. Now I notice that a half and a half, you put 2 halves together, that's 1 whole. So that means I have 1 plus 1 and a quarter. So my answer would be 1 plus 1 is 2 and a quarter yards squared. That would be my answer for my area of the rectangle. Okay? Okay, now we're going to move on to question number 3. Question number 3 has actually 3 parts, so this one's going to be a long one. Hanley is putting carpet in her house. She wants to carpet her living room, which measures 15 feet by 12 1/3 feet. She also wants to carpet her dining room, which is 10 1/4 foot times 10 1/3 foot. How many square feet of carpet will she need to cover both rooms? Now, for this problem, I have to find the area for both rooms. So the first problem that I'm going to do is I'm going to find the area for the living room. So the living room, the dimensions were 15 feet times 12 1/3 feet. 15 feet times 12 1/3 feet. So the first thing that I'm going to do is draw my area model. And remember that since we're doing an area model, I have to have my ones and my fractional parts separated. So for 12 1/3, I'm going to have 12 1/3 down here. And these are feet, feet. So in this top box, I have to do 15 times 12. So to do 15 times 12, let's show you the work over here. We're going to do 2 times 5 is 10. Put down the 0, carry my 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus the 1 that you carried is 3. I am done with the ones place. I'm going to the tens place, so I need to hold the tens spot in the second row. 1 times 5 is 5, And 1 times 1 is 1. Add it up. 0 plus 0 is 0. 3 plus 5 is 8. And 1 plus nothing is 1. So my area for the top is 180 feet squared. That's the section. Now we have to do 15 times a third. So we're going to do 15 times 1/3. Again, 15 is a whole number. I'm going to put it over a 1. So now I have numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. 15 times 1 is 15. 1 times 3 is 3. This is improper. So how many times can 3 fit into 15? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. It fits in evenly 5 times. So I have 5 feet squared. Now to find my total area for the living room, I do 180 feet squared plus 5 feet squared. 0 plus 5 is 5. 8 plus nothing is 8. 1 plus nothing is 1. So my living room, I have 185 feet squared for my living room. Now we have to go ahead and do the same thing for the dining room. So for the dining room, our dimensions were 10 1/4 by 10 1/3 feet. So we're going to do the same thing for the living room. We're going to make an area model. And we have to break apart our 10 1/4 into 10 whole and 1/4. And these are both feet. And I'm going to divide my area model. And then on the side, I have 10 feet and 1/3 feet. So we're going to divide our area model. Now we have to find the area model for all 4 parts. So the first part I'm going to do is 10 times 10. So 10 times 10, well, 10 times 10 is 100 feet squared. There's our first area. Now we're going to move over to this, and we have to do 1/4 times 10. 10 is a whole number. I have to put it over a 1. So that leaves me with 1 times 10 is 10. 1 times 4 is 4. 10/4 is improper, so I have to write it as a mixed number. 4 fits into 10, 4, 8, 2 times. It fits in there 2 times. And if I'm on 8, 9, 10, that leaves me with 2 left over. So 10/4 improper turns into 2 2/4. 2/4 is still not done yet. It's not simplified to lowest terms, so I know both of these are even, so I'm going to divide both by 2. So I'm going to bring over my whole number. 2 divided by 2, 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So it's 2.5 feet squared. So there's my area for that section. And I'm going to come down to this square. I have 10 times 1/3, so I'm going to put 10 times 1/3. 10 is a whole number. I'm going to put it over a 1 again. I have numerator times numerator. So numerator times numerator would be 10. 1 times 3 is 3. Again, this is improper. So I have to figure out how many times does 3 fit into 10. 3, 6, 9. It fits in 3 whole times. If I'm on 9, that leaves me with 1 remainder. So I have 3 with 1/3 feet squared. So that is my area for that square. And now I have to do the last square. The last square is 1/4 times 1/3. Numerator times numerator. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 3 is 12 feet squared. Whew, got all 4 parts. I have all 4 of my areas. So now, in order to find the dining room, because we're not done, we have to add all of those together. So I'm going to take 100. Well, before I even do that, I can't add these fractions together yet. So let's write all of them down first. I have 100 plus 2 1/2 plus 3 1/3 plus 1/12. So here is the area that I have to solve. Now, I can add the whole numbers first, which is what I'm going to do. I have 100 plus 2 plus 3. So 100 plus 2 is 102, plus 3 is 105. So far I have an area of 105. But I can't add these fractions together yet because they don't have a common denominator. So I am going to put the 1/3, the 1/2, the 1/3, and the 1/12 below. And I have to add these together. But I can't add these together because they don't have a common denominator. So I have to think, what do all 3 of these numbers have in common? So if I start doing my 2's, let me do my multiples of 2. I know the biggest number here is 12. So let's see if 2 fits in a 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 2 does fit in a 12. Okay, let's see if 3 fits in a 12. 3, 6, 9, 12. It does fit. So the common denominator that I can use for all 3 of these is 12. So now I'm going to write an equivalent fraction. What did I multiply 2 by to give me 12? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I multiplied it by 6. And in order to make an equivalent fraction, since I multiplied the bottom by 6, I have to multiply the top by 6. So 1 times 6 is 6. So my equivalent fraction is 6/12. What did I multiply 3 by to get 12? 3, 6, 9, 12. I multiplied it by 4. So I have to do 1 times 4. And 1 times 4 is 4. So these two are equivalent fractions. And 12, what did I multiply 12 by to get 12? I multiplied it by 1. So 1 times 1 is 1. So now I have equivalent fractions. They all have the denominator of 12. And because they all have the same denominator, now I can add them up. So now I have 4. 6 plus 4 is 10. And 10 plus 1 is 11. So I have 11/12. So when I add my whole numbers together, I have 100 plus 2 is 102, plus 3 is 105. Then I added my 3 denominators of my fractions together. I added my 3 fractions together. And I ended up with 11/12. So my dining room, that took a lot of work. My dining room, here is my area for my dining room. This is my area for my living room. So we're not done yet. In order to do the cover both rooms, I need the total. So now I'm going to have to do the grand total. So the total area, I have to add the 185 feet squared for the living room and the 105 and 11/12 feet squared for the dining room. And 11/12 plus nothing is 11/12. And 5 plus 5 is 10. 8 plus 1 is 9, and 1 plus 1 is 2. I need 290 and 11/12 feet squared to cover the whole floor. So this one was a lot of work. I had to find the area of the living room first. Then I had to find the area of the dining room. And then I added them both together. And that gave me my total for the whole living room. I hope this helped you. Thanks for listening. Bye.